Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. Thank you so much for being here time and again. We are in 2022 right now. It is the start, we're in February already. So just checking in. How are our wellness goals? How are our health goals? How are you feeling about things? I just wrapped up the Healthy Habits Challenge last week. It was amazing. Brought in some new clients into the 6 months of food freedom program. Some people joined doing the Healthy Livings Foundation's course, and we got some new members in the Facebook group. So if you didn't have a chance to participate in the challenge, at first I was only going to give the replays to whoever, was originally participated. But if you want access to those replays, I don't care. I want you to get as much help and support as possible in this new year. So I will do anything, just about anything, to help you break up with dieting and restriction and binging and really just learn to live a healthier lifestyle. So with that said, if you would like access to those replays, number one, make sure you're part of the Facebook group. I will put the link in the show notes. If you do not have Facebook, you can email me, tipswithtony@gmail.com, and just reach out to me and just say, hey, Tony, I would love the replays from the Healthy Habits Challenge. We went over everything. We went over different forms of tracking. We went over macronutrients. We went over the plate method. We went over how to make exercise work for you. We talked about appropriate sleep hygiene, how to get quality sleep, and establishing a morning routine and an evening routine. And we talked about emotional eating and what's food freedom and how do we navigate weekends, and basically everything you need to know about how to live a healthier lifestyle. We gave a lot of knowledge and sneak peeks to what you would need to continue to develop over the course of this year. So obviously habits cannot be made or broken in 1 week, but the challenge technically was 1 week just to provide education and value so that you know what you need to do to move forward. Now, with that said, if you're struggling with implementation, chances are you need accountability, you need support, and you need someone to provide some structure and guidance, and a health professional at that. So as I'm recording this right now, I believe there's maybe 2 spots left in the 6 months of food freedom coaching program. That's until I'm actually in the process of hiring a new dietitian. That's until she is all trained or someone graduates. So with that said, spots are limited at the moment. But if you are listening to this and you've been listening for the past few years, or maybe this is your first time listening, but you decided to press play today, don't take that as a sign or a coincidence at all. You were meant to hear this. So here is your invitation to go to tipswithtony.com/coaching, watch the video about the program, and apply if you haven't yet, because we have some really, really great things coming to you, and you will only get what you put into it. So it really comes down to putting yourself in the position to learn and to win and to get supported and to change your past to create a brighter and better future. So go to tipswithtony.com/coaching if you haven't yet, to hopefully claim those last few spots before, I don't know when they'll be available again. But the sooner you get in, the better. And last part with that, I'll just say, is that the biggest regret all of our clients have ever had was that they didn't do the program sooner. So the sooner you do it, the better. So even if a spot opens up in a few months and you're like, oh, you know what, I'll take my chances. I'm reminding you that you're also taking your chances of, now we're going to have more work to do in a few months. So now is the time to get your application in so that you can change your life for the better. No more obsessing over food, worrying about the number on the scale, letting food control you. We're done with that. All right? Okay. Today we are talking about, do you really need 10,000 steps a day? If you follow someone on Instagram, or if you've ever worked with a healthcare professional before, or if you just have a simple Apple Watch or Fitbit or whatever sort of fitness tracker, then they usually give you the first target goal is 10,000 steps a day. Now, for some of you, that might be easy. Maybe you walk to work. Maybe your job requires you on your feet. Maybe you're super active. Maybe you're a runner, right? So for some of you, 10,000 steps a day could be quite easy. But for others, like myself, who my job is basically sitting on a computer all day, fortunately I have the flexibility I can technically be flexible and, do other things outside of that, but it's pretty confined. That, and then when you add, right now, as I record this, I'm from New York, and it's January in New York. It's freezing outside. The past few days the temperatures have been in the single digits in Fahrenheit, which is brutal, absolutely brutal. And it's been cold. So you don't want to always move or go outside for a walk. And then how long do you really want to walk on a treadmill if you even have access to one? It's definitely a lot harder to stay active in the winter. It's not as inviting. Whereas when it's a beautiful day, and also too when the sun stays out, till 8 p.m., you're more likely to go outside for a walk. Even if, the weather is mediocre, at least it's light out, right? But now, not only do you have the fact that it's super cold, but I don't feel safe always to go out walking in the dark, right? So there's a lot of reasons why we might not move as much in the winter. And so the reason why I'm not a huge fan of the 10,000 step a day goal is because, like with any goal, if it feels so far away, also if it feels so black and white, it's, instead of it being motivating and inspiring, it feels defeating. And it also can be demotivating. And it also can become obsessive, right? And it's like, why are we obsessing over this number? When in actuality, about to tell you guys, you actually don't need 10,000 steps a day. Do you want to know where this number came from? Maybe you already know. But in the 1960s, someone in Japan who was a clockmaker was trying to capitalize on this interest in fitness. So without any science backing, he just recommended 10,000 steps a day. So that's not based off science, nor is that someone who is even in the realm of health and wellness. Now, with that said, years later, and even till today, there have been more recent studies. So there was actually a study in 2019 that found that women in their 70s who managed as few as 4,400 steps a day reduced their risk of premature death by about 40% compared to the women who walked 2,700 steps a day. And then within that same study, among the women walking more than 5,000 steps a day, their benefit actually plateaued at 7,500 steps a day. Meaning those who walked on average 5,000 steps would have a longer life expectancy than somebody who walked less than that. However, if you walked 7,500 steps a day, you would also have more benefits than the person walking 5,000 steps. But anything more than 7,500 steps actually didn't really affect their life expectancy as much. And then actually last year, so in 2020, so maybe 2 years ago, they actually did another study with almost 5,000 middle-aged women, men and women, with various ethnicities, and they actually found that the 10,000 steps are not a requirement for longevity. In that study, people who walked for about 8,000 steps a day were half as likely to die prematurely from heart disease or any other cause as those who accumulated 4,000 steps a day. So once again, very similarly, the more steps, the better until an extent, right? So 4,000 steps a day is better compared to 2,000 steps a day. 5,000 steps a day is better compared to 4,000 steps a day. 7,500 steps a day is better than 5,000. 8,000 steps a day is better than 4,000, according to all these different studies. Now, with that said, when you get to that 10,000 mark, it actually isn't much of a difference. So on average, and this is more so through I've talked to other fitness professionals, other health-related professionals in the field. This is not technically like a recommendation because once again, I don't want you to get so caught up in a new number. But it seems to be that the daily recommendation steps actually should be around 7,500. And even if you do things like strength training, for example, where it's not necessarily getting your steps in, but you're being physically active, then even, doing 4,000 to 5,000 steps that day and then doing some strength training is just as good. So, and this is I talked to one of my friends who she has her PhD in exercise physiology, and that's where I got her recommendation from. Dr. Rachel Reed, actually, if you don't follow her on Instagram, I highly recommend. And she also came in to give a talk to those who are in the 6 Months of Food Freedom program about a year ago. And that's pretty much the more and more I do the research, that's where I keep coming up. And so how I interpret that is like, the fact that you moved or were intentional and got either some steps in or did some strength training or moved your body, I think that's alone really, really great. And sometimes it's helpful to be able to look at your watch and be like, oh, you know what? Normally I move this much, but if I'm intentional about maybe I take the stairs instead of the elevator, or I park further in the parking lot, I might be able to get more steps in. So I think that's important. Now, the other reason why this idea of 10,000 steps a day came from, if you notice, the studies I was referring to were all about the longevity of life. However, most people are aiming for 10,000 steps a day to help with fat loss. So I don't have a lot of research on that. Didn't take the time to do it. To be completely frank, it is Monday, January 24th at 4:30 p.m. And this episode is to release Tuesday at midnight. So here we are. This decided to come into my head, and this is what I wanted to talk about. But I'll be happy to, if you guys have any studies or things you want me to read, or I can maybe, if I come across anything else in regards to fat loss and more kind of up-to-date info on that, I will let you know. But with that said, it still aligns with my original recommendation, which is, even if the goal is fat loss rather than trying to live a healthier life, a longer life, sometimes still for some people, 10,000 steps a day is like saying, if you never worked out a day in your life, now I want you to go to the gym 6 to 7 days a week. Sometimes it's so unrealistic, it's not motivating. So let's start smaller, right? Instead of aiming for 10,000 steps a day, let's aim for 3,000 if you average 1,000, or if you average 6,000, let's go for 7,000 or whatever it is. Or if you never go to the gym, instead of trying to go every day, let's go 2 to 3 days a week. Or if you've never, went for a run and you're trying to be a runner, let's start with a couple of days a week, whatever it is. So basically that's kind of why, whether the goal is fat loss or whether the goal is just to live longer, I still want you to be mindful that it doesn't necessarily have to be 10,000 steps a day. And if that's stressing you out more than helping you out, well, you know my saying, then you got to throw it out. Okay. There's definitely room to be flexible within that. And it doesn't have to be this rigid, if I didn't walk today, I'm a failure and I'm not going to make progress. And we know that that's not the case, right? So really just use it as a motivator, as a way to kind of set some intention and keep going. Now, in regards to fat loss, the reason why it's recommended is actually, if we look at what affects our metabolism, we have the things that we can't change, like our age and our gender. That alone will set our metabolism to be a certain way. Other things that affect our metabolism is the food that we eat, is our muscle mass, the exercise that we engage in, and a larger portion of actually what affects our metabolism is what we call the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So you may have heard it, it's called NEAT. So that's actually not considered because you think about it, most exercise is maybe an hour out of your 24 hours of your day, right? So with that, it can affect your metabolism, but it's not going to affect your metabolism as much as the fact that for 8 hours a day, we're sitting on a computer, right? Whereas 8 hours a day, you could actually, get a standing desk and be standing more than sitting less, and that will actually impact your metabolism. it is more important in regards to, think about like, do you, at the end of your workday, do you kind of lay on the couch for hours, or do you cook and clean and you're on your feet, right? That stuff is daily, right? So it's kind of more so, what are you doing on a regular basis? And then, exercise, especially if you're doing something like strength training, in time, it will affect your metabolism. And just, burning excess calories through movement will affect your metabolism. But it's not going to affect it actually in the way of just moving on a regular basis. So just getting in the habit of moving more, I always tell people, is a better goal than thinking about how many calories am I burning? How intense is my workout? Did I break a sweat? All these things too, because also high impact exercise sometimes can stress the body out and actually damage the metabolism over time. So it's quite complicated. So I know a lot of people think it's as simple as like, if I eat this many calories and burn this many calories, I'll lose weight and I'll burn fat. But it actually doesn't work that way. So the quality of our food really is important. And the type of activity, the frequency of activity, and then even things like sleep can have an impact as well. But all that to say, what we're talking about today is when it comes to walking and aiming for that 10,000 steps a day, a lot of nutrition coaches or dietitians or even just like influencers will encourage this number. And it can become quite obsessive, and it can kind of be like, well, if you have your food down and you have your exercise down and you have your sleep down, well, then what we need to be working on is your NEAT. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's other ways actually in which you can get your NEAT up, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So you could just intentionally like clean out a closet. You can just dance in your room. You can and when I say dance in your room, I'm realizing like you could do that, but you could also like dance while you cook. There's so many ways in which you can just move your body more. You can get a standing desk. You can intentionally do things like go for a walk. But in the winter, it might be a little bit harder to do that. So I would say maybe if you have stairs in your building, go up and down the stairs. In between your breaks, actually, like if you are on calls all day long and you're sitting a lot, in between each break, do some jumping jacks. If you have a place where you work where you have a bathroom that's like close to you versus a bathroom that's like you have to walk like down the hall or take some stairs to do it, even though it would make more sense for you to just use the bathroom that's right next to you, get in the habit of intentionally using the bathroom that's further from you. It sounds silly, but that is the stuff that actually adds up in a daily basis. So with that said, you don't have to have 10,000 steps a day. If you like to and it's easy for you, that's great. But if it's stressing you out more than helping you out, we got to throw it out. That's not a good goal for you, right? So a more realistic goal would be like, I just want to move more. I want to aim for, and if having a specific number helps you, then fine, give yourself a number, but make it a realistic number. Track your steps on a regular basis, see how much you average, and then go up and aim for like 500 to 1,000 increments from there. And see if that helps. And find fun ways to do it, because it's freezing outside, depending on where you are. If you're listening to this and you're in Australia, fortunately for you, it's super, super sunny and hot. And maybe I need to live in Australia half the year and then come here the other half. But yeah, so with that said, I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, let me know. Take a screenshot of it, share it on your story, tag me on Instagram @tips_with_Tony with an I, and let me know what else you want to hear, what else you want to learn about. I've been so busy that I feel bad, guys, because I feel like the podcast is like everything in life, right? There's ups and downs, and there's things that take priority versus others. And normally the podcast is the thing that I am on top of my game with. And more recently, it's been like, oh, God, there's an episode that I'm supposed to have out tomorrow, and I didn't record it yet. So part of that is just because I'm kind of busy with other things. But other things, too, it's also, sometimes I'm like, I already talked about that. I don't know what I want to talk about. So if you have specific topics in mind or things you want to hear, things you want to learn, that'll motivate me. That'll excite me to know that I'm providing value for you of something that you want to know, you want to learn. That would definitely get me to record a little bit more ahead of time, I guess. So yeah, so let me know what you liked. And if you're not subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. A new episode comes out every Tuesday and Thursday. And when you're subscribed, you don't miss a beat. All right, that is it for me today. As always, this is Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.